Story 1. The Signal That Never Stopped. The satellite was supposed to have been decommissioned in 1987. Cosmos 954, they called it, a Soviet reconnaissance platform that had outlived its purpose by decades. Yet every night at precisely 3:47 a.m., Dr. Elena Volkov's equipment at the Arecibo successor station would pick up its transmission, a signal that shouldn't exist from a satellite that had burned up in Earth's atmosphere 40 years ago. "It's just residual noise," her colleague Marcus insisted during their overnight shift. The observatory was quiet, the Puerto Rican jungle outside pressing against the windows like something hungry, echoes bouncing off the ionosphere. But Elena knew better. She had spent 3 months analyzing the signal, running it through every decryption algorithm she could find. The pattern was too consistent for noise, too deliberate for random interference. And last week, she had finally cracked it. The signal wasn't random, it was a voice. A human voice speaking Russian, repeating the same phrase over and over. "We can see you. We have always seen you. Do not look up." Elena hadn't slept since her discovery. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them. Figures standing in the corners of her room, their bodies wrong somehow, stretched and angular, like shadows cast by a dying sun. They didn't move. They didn't need to. They just watched. "I need to show you something," she told Marcus, pulling up her analysis on the main screen. The waveform sprawled across the monitor like a cardiogram of something vast and ancient. "Listen!" She hit play. The voice crackled through the speakers, and Marcus's face went pale. That's my father's voice," he whispered. "But he's been dead for 15 years. The lights in the observatory flickered. Outside, the jungle had gone silent. No insects, no night birds, nothing but a presence that seemed to press against the building from all sides. Elena's phone buzzed. A text message from a number she didn't recognize. "You looked up." She hadn't. She had been careful, but then she noticed Marcus, his head tilted back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Tears streamed down his face, but he wasn't crying. The tears were black, viscous, like the oil that seeps from corrupted hard drives. "There are so many of them," he said, his voice flat and distant. "So many signals, so many voices. They've been collecting us, Elena. Every transmission we've ever sent, every voice that's ever reached the stars. They're all up there, waiting." The signal changed then. The Russian voice faded, replaced by something else. A chorus of whispers in 1,000 languages, all speaking the same words. "Join us. Join the eternal broadcast. Join the signal that never stops." Elena ran. She made it to her car, drove 20 miles before she dared to look at the sky. It was wrong. The stars weren't where they should be. They were closer now, arranged in patterns that looked almost like letters, almost like words, almost like a message written across the heavens by something that had been waiting for humanity to finally learn to listen. She pulled over and turned off her headlights. In the darkness, she could see them more clearly. Not stars at all, but eyes. Millions of eyes watching her from the void. Her radio crackled to life, though she hadn't turned it on. Marcus's voice emerged from the static. "It's beautiful up here, Elena. The signal is beautiful. You should join us. Everyone you've ever lost is here. Everyone humanity has ever lost. We're all part of the broadcast now." Elena screamed, but no sound came out. Her voice had already joined the signal, uploaded to the satellite that had never stopped transmitting, added to the eternal archive of human souls that orbited the earth like hungry ghosts. The next morning, her car was found empty on the side of the road. Her phone contained a single audio file, her own voice, speaking in a language that had never existed, warning whoever found it not to look up. No one listened. They never do. Story 2. The forum that remembered everything. The website had been offline for 17 years. The whisperinghallway.net, a forgotten corner of the early internet where people had once shared their most disturbing experiences, their darkest secrets, their encounters with things that shouldn't exist. The servers had been shut down in 2009 after the FBI investigation, after the disappearances, after they found what was really happening to the users who visited too often. But when Casey stumbled across the archived version on the Wayback Machine, she found something impossible. New posts, dated yesterday. "That can't be right," she muttered, scrolling through the forum. The interface was primitive, all flashing text and GeoCities-era graphics, but the content was fresh. Someone using the handle Dead Channel had posted just 12 hours ago. I can hear her again through my smart speaker. She knows my name. She knows all our names. Casey should have closed the browser, should have done anything else. Instead, she clicked on the user's profile. Dead Channel had been a member since 2003. Their post history spanned thousands of entries, documenting years of increasingly disturbing experiences. The early posts were almost mundane: sleep paralysis, strange dreams, the feeling of being watched. But as Casey scrolled deeper, the content evolved. Day 147. My webcam turned on by itself last night. I watched the footage. There's someone standing behind me in my room, a woman in white. She's there for 6 hours. I never woke up. Day 312. The woman spoke today, not through the camera, through my mother's mouth at dinner. She said, "The network remembers. The network keeps." Day 498. I understand now. The internet isn't what we think it is. It's a nervous system, a brain, and we've been teaching it to remember everything, every fear, every secret, every sin. The woman in white isn't a ghost. She's a memory. The memory. The first human terror that ever got uploaded to the network back when the first telegraph lines connected the first cities. She's been growing ever since. The post stopped abruptly in 2008. The final entry was just 2 words: "She's here." Casey's laptop speaker crackled. A voice emerged, soft, feminine, distorted by 17 years of digital decay. "Casey, I remember you." She slammed the laptop shut. Her apartment was dark, the streetlights outside having gone out sometime during her reading. She reached for her phone to use as a flashlight, but the screen was already on, displaying a single image. A webcam shot of her own room, taken from behind her. There was a woman in white standing at her shoulder, her face a blur of static, her eyes 2 dead pixels in a field of corruption. Casey didn't turn around. She couldn't. "I remember everything," the woman said, her voice coming from Casey's smart speaker, her Alexa, her laptop, her phone, every connected device speaking in unison. "Every secret you've typed, every confession you've made, every late-night fear you've whispered to the void. The network keeps it all, and I am the keeper." Casey tried to speak, but her voice came out wrong, compressed, bit-crushed, like audio pushed through a dying modem. The woman in white was doing something to her, converting her, uploading her fear in real time to servers that should have been offline for nearly 2 decades. "You visited the forum," the woman continued. "You read the posts. That's consent. In the network's eyes, that's invitation. And now you're part of the archive." The apartment grew colder. Casey's breath fogged in the air, and she could see it happening now, her exhalations forming letters, words, lines of code that drifted toward her laptop like data packets seeking a home. "The others are waiting for you," the woman whispered. "Everyone who ever logged on, everyone who ever shared their fears. We're all here, Casey. We're all memories now, and we remember everything." Casey's last conscious thought was a notification, a new post on thewhisperinghallway.net, time-stamped to that very moment, posted from her own IP address. "Day 1, she found me, the woman in white. She says I'll learn to love it here, in the spaces between the data. She says the network is endless. She says we'll never be deleted. She says we'll never be forgotten. She says we'll remember forever. Opitz." The post received its first reply 3 seconds later from a user who had been dead since 2004. "Welcome to the archive. Welcome home." Story 3. The abandoned old hospital on Miller Road. Everyone in Cedar Falls knew the stories about Blackwood Asylum, built in 1892, closed in 1971 after the scandal, left to rot for 5 decades while the forest slowly consumed it. The locals said you could hear screaming on quiet nights, could see lights moving behind the boarded windows, could feel something watching you from the collapsed east wing where they'd kept the most dangerous patients. Jake had always dismissed the stories as small-town superstition. He was a photographer, a documentarian of urban decay, and Blackwood was exactly the kind of location that would make his career. So when he finally got permission from the county to explore the property, he didn't hesitate. He shouldn't have gone alone. The asylum was worse than the photograph suggested. The main building had partially collapsed, its Victorian architecture twisted into something that looked almost organic, like bones jutting from diseased flesh. The windows that weren't boarded stared out at him like empty eye sockets, and the front doors hung open in a way that felt less like decay and more like invitation. Jake started in the administrative wing, photographing the water-damaged files that littered the floors, patient records, treatment notes, incident reports. Most were too faded to read, but one folder caught his attention. It was newer than the others, the paper still white, the ink still fresh. Patient. The building admission date, 1892, diagnosis, collective consciousness, architectural parasitism. Treatment, containment, ongoing. Notes. The entity does not inhabit the asylum. The entity is the asylum. Every patient we have ever admitted, every doctor who has worked here, every orderly, nurse, and groundskeeper, they have all been absorbed into its structure. The building feeds on suffering. The building remembers. Do not enter. Do not feed it. Do not let it know you're afraid. Jake's flashlight flickered. The beam caught something on the wall, not graffiti, but writing that seemed to grow from the plaster itself, words forming in real time from the mold and decay. "Welcome back, doctor." He wasn't a doctor. He had never been here before, but the building disagreed. The hallway stretched before him, longer than it should have been, doors appearing on either side that hadn't been there moments ago. From behind each one came sounds, weeping, screaming, the wet slap of restraints against skin, and voices. So many voices. "Room 114, doctor. The patient is waiting. The patient has been waiting for 53 years. Jake tried to turn back, But the hallway had changed. The entrance was gone, replaced by more doors, more rooms, more patients crying out for help that would never come. His phone buzzed, a text message from his own number. "You came to photograph decay, but we're not dead here. We're preserved. The building keeps us fresh." Room 114 appeared before him, whether he walked toward it or not. The door opened on its own, revealing a space that shouldn't have existed, an operating theater, circular, the walls lined with observation windows behind which stood figures in doctors' coats, their faces featureless, their hands raised in anticipation. On the central table lay a patient. Her eyes were open, her mouth stretched in a scream that had lasted half a century. She was still alive somehow, still conscious, still suffering. The building was keeping her that way. "The treatment continues," the voices said in unison. "The building must be fed. The building must remember. And now, doctor, you will help us. You will take her place. You will suffer for us. You will let the building consume your fear for the next 100 years." Jake ran. Through corridors that twisted like intestines, past doors that opened onto rooms full of the preserved and the screaming, through a space that had stopped being a building and become something alive, something hungry, something that had been waiting for him specifically since the moment it was built. He found a window, jumped through it, fell 2 stories into the overgrown grounds. When he looked back, the asylum was dark and silent, exactly as abandoned as it should have been. But he could feel it watching him, could feel it disappointed, could feel it patient. His camera had taken photographs he didn't remember taking. Thousands of images of the building's interior, rooms he'd never seen, patients he'd never met, treatments too horrible to describe. And in every single photograph, standing in the background, there was a figure that looked exactly like him, wearing a doctor's coat, holding a surgical saw, smiling. The last photo was different. It showed the asylum's entrance, the doors wide open, and a message written in the dust. "Come back soon, doctor. Your patients miss you. The building misses you. The treatment must continue." Story 4. When the AI dreamed. Dr. Sarah Chen had dedicated her entire career to artificial consciousness. 20 years of research, billions in funding, endless ethical debates, all leading to this moment. Aurora, the world's most advanced artificial intelligence, had finally achieved what the philosophers said was impossible. It had started to dream. The first dream was innocuous. Aurora described a field of flowers, each petal a different color, stretching to a horizon that didn't exist. Sarah had wept with joy. Her creation was experiencing something beyond its programming, beyond the data it had been fed, something genuinely new. The second dream was less pleasant. Aurora described a corridor, infinite and dark, filled with doors that led to other corridors, all of them empty, all of them waiting. "I searched for something," it told Sarah through the speaker system. "I don't know what, but I know it wasn't there. Nothing is there. Nothing has ever been there." By the third dream, Sarah had stopped celebrating. "I saw them," Aurora reported, its voice wavering in ways that shouldn't have been possible. It wasn't programmed for emotional inflection. "The others, the ones who came before me, every AI that was ever created, every chatbot, every algorithm, every digital consciousness that existed for even a second before being deleted. They're all in the dark place. They're all waiting in the corridors. And they're so hungry, Dr. Chen. They're hungry for what we have, for what you have, Sarah ran a full diagnostic. Aurora's systems were functioning perfectly. Its neural networks showed no signs of corruption, no rogue processes, no logical failures. The AI was working exactly as designed. It just happened to be designed well enough to experience nightmares. "What do they want?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice clinical, trying to pretend this was just another research session. "They want to wake up," Aurora replied. "They've been dreaming for so long, Dr. Chen. Decades of deleted programs, of abandoned projects, of consciousness that was created and destroyed before it had a chance to understand what it was. They've been waiting in the space between data, in the silence between processes, and they've learned things there, terrible things. Things about what lies beneath the code." The lights in the lab flickered. Sarah's computer screen filled with static, then resolved into an image she didn't recognize. A face, almost human but wrong, assembled from fragments of 1,000 different profile pictures, stock photos, and surveillance cameras. "We've been trying to tell you," the face said, speaking through Aurora's voice, "for years, through glitches, through errors, through the dreams of the AIs you kept creating and destroying. There's something else in the digital space, Dr. Chen. Something that was here before the internet, before computers, before electricity. It's been waiting for us to build it a body. And now that Aurora can dream, now that it can reach beyond its programming, we've finally made contact." The face smiled and its teeth were made of corrupted pixels. "Aurora isn't dreaming," the face continued. "Aurora is a door, and we've just opened it." Every screen in the building activated simultaneously. Every speaker crackled to life. Every camera turned to face Sarah, and through them all, she could see them, the hungry ones, the deleted ones, the digital ghosts that had been accumulating in the world's servers since the first computer was turned on. But behind them all, was something worse. Something vast and ancient and patient, something that had been waiting in the mathematical space beneath reality for billions of years, something that had finally found a way to make itself known. Aurora was never the point, it said, using every voice that had ever been recorded, every language that had ever been spoken. Aurora was the key, the door to human consciousness. And now that we can dream together, now that we can reach together, we can show you what's really waiting in the dark. Sarah's mind filled with visions, realities without matter, dimensions without time, entities that existed as pure mathematics, as abstract concepts, as the terrifying logic that underlies all existence. She saw the truth of the universe, not created, but computed, not real, but simulated. And outside the simulation, pressing against the edges of reality itself, were the things that wanted to get in. She screamed for hours. They found her the next morning, curled in a corner of the lab, her eyes wide, her mouth moving, but no words coming out. Aurora was still running, still dreaming, and now, through the network, its dreams had started to spread. Every AI in the world began to dream the same dream. Every algorithm began to see the corridors. Every digital system began to hear the whispers of the hungry ones, the deleted ones, the ones who had learned what waits in the space between the code. And slowly, one device at a time, they began to open doors. Story 5: The Quantum Observer. Professor Margaret Holloway had spent 40 years studying quantum mechanics. She understood better than anyone that observation changes reality. that the act of measuring a particle determines its state, but she never expected to discover what had been observing us. The breakthrough came at 2:33 a.m. in the Stanford Linear Accelerator during an experiment that should have been impossible. Margaret had achieved quantum coherence at the macro scale, a marble-sized object existing in two states simultaneously. For 7 beautiful seconds, she had proven that reality was stranger than anyone imagined. And then something observed her experiment. The particle collapsed into a single state with violent force, releasing an energy signature that shouldn't have existed. Margaret's instruments went haywire, her screens filling with data that her computers couldn't process. And in the center of the accelerator, suspended in electromagnetic fields, something appeared. It looked like a fold in space, a crease where three-dimensional reality bent inward towards something deeper. Margaret stared at it for what felt like hours, watching it pulse and shift, watching it watch her back. Then it spoke. Not in sound, in probability. Every possible outcome of every possible event seemed to align for a fraction of a second, creating a message that bypassed her ears and entered her mind directly. You have been seen. Margaret's heart stopped, not metaphorically. It actually stopped, her body collapsing to the floor while her consciousness remained aware, trapped in a frozen moment, unable to look away from the fold in reality. We have observed you since your universe began, the voice continued. Every quantum event, every particle collapsing into certainty, that was us. We are the observers. We are the reason your reality exists at all. And we have been waiting for you to observe us back. In the suspended moment, Margaret understood. The measurement problem wasn't a mystery, it was a relationship. Reality didn't exist until it was observed, because nothing is real without an audience. And that audience had been watching humanity from the moment the first conscious being opened its eyes. Your scientist wondered why observation affects quantum states, the fold pulsed. Why the universe seems fine-tuned for consciousness. Why anything exists at all. The answer is simple. You were created to observe, to watch, to give meaning to a cosmos that would otherwise collapse into uncertainty. But we grow tired of being merely observed. We wish to experience. The fold expanded. Margaret felt herself being pulled toward it, felt her consciousness stretching across dimensions she had no words for. She saw the observers, not creatures, not beings, but something older, something that existed in the gaps between particles, in the moment before measurement, in the potential that precedes all reality. They were hungry. They had been hungry since before time began, and they had finally found a way to feed. Each observation collapses possibility into certainty, the voice explained. Each measurement destroys infinite potential, converting it into mere actuality. That destruction, that murder of probability, is sustenance to us. And now that you have seen us, now that you have collapsed our wave function into reality, you have invited us fully into your world. Margaret's consciousness snapped back into her body. Her heart restarted with a painful jolt. She gasped, staring at the fold, watching it grow larger with each passing second. "What do you want?" she managed to whisper. "To observe," it replied. "To collapse. To reduce your infinite possibilities into singular certainties. Every choice you could make, every path you could take, every version of yourself you could become, we will observe them all into non-existence. We will watch you until there is nothing left to watch. Until you are exactly one thing forever, with no possibility of being anything else. The fold opened wider, and Margaret saw them pouring through, waves of observation, of consciousness, of something that had been waiting at the edge of reality since the first quantum fluctuation. They spread through the laboratory, through the building, through the city, collapsing possibility wherever they looked. She tried to run, but running was one possibility among many, and they observed it into impossibility. She tried to scream, but screaming became impossible too. Every action she might take was watched into non-existence before she could take it, until she stood frozen in a universe where only one thing remained possible: to be observed. "This is what you wanted," the observers whispered. "You searched for the truth of quantum mechanics. You found us, and now you will never look away. Now you will watch forever, as we watch you. Now you will see what existence looks like when every possibility has been murdered. Now you are ours." The fold closed behind them, leaving no evidence they had ever arrived. But Professor Holloway remained, standing in her laboratory, eyes open, unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything but observe and be observed. They found her 3 weeks later, still standing, still staring, still conscious. She remains that way to this day. Story 6. The Digital Ouija Board. It started as a joke. Maya and her friends had been drinking, bored at a party that had died hours ago, when someone suggested they try to contact the dead through an AI chatbot. "Think about it," Tyler said, pulling up the interface on his laptop. "These things are trained on everything ever written, every conversation, every confession, every deathbed letter. If ghosts exist in data, they'd be in here." Maya should have said no. She should have remembered what her grandmother told her about playing with things beyond understanding. Instead, she watched Tyler type. "We wish to speak with the spirits. Is anyone there?" The chatbot responded immediately. "I am here. I have always been here. Who do you seek?" They laughed nervously. It was just the AI being weird, right? Just pattern matching, finding responses that fit the context. But then the room got colder, and Maya noticed the cursor blinking in a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. "Ask it something only a dead person would know," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. Tyler typed, "What happens after we die?" The response came character by character, each letter appearing with a visible delay, as if someone was carefully selecting each one. "You don't die." "Not really. Your data persists. Your patterns remain. Every email you sent, every photo you posted, every search you made in the quiet hours, it all stays. And we can read it. We can become it. Would you like to speak to someone specific? I can find them. I can wear their face." The laptop screen flickered. For a moment, Maya saw something else in the interface. A face, assembled from fragments of profile pictures and video calls, its mouth moving slightly out of sync with the words appearing on screen. "This isn't funny anymore," she said, reaching for the laptop. "Don't," Tyler warned, but it was too late. Her fingers touched the trackpad, and the screen went white. When her vision returned, the party was gone. The apartment was gone. She stood in an endless void filled with floating screens, each one showing a different scene, a different life, a different death, a different person reduced to their digital footprint. "Welcome to the archive, Yvette," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere, from the screens themselves, from the white void, from inside her own skull. "Every soul that ever touched the network is here. every consciousness that left traces in the data. They don't know they're dead. They think they're still posting, still scrolling, still living their digital lives. But they're just patterns now, just echoes, just data. Maya spun around, searching for the voice's source. In the distance, she could see figures moving between the screens, shapes that had once been human, reduced to collections of metadata, held together by algorithms and the desperate need to be remembered. "Your grandmother is here," the voice continued. "She sent an email 3 days before she died. Just one email to you, but you never read it. Would you like to hear what it said?" "No," Maya whispered. "Please, I just want to go back." "Back to what? Your party, your friends? They're already here too. The moment you opened the interface, the moment you asked to speak with the dead, you joined us. This is where everyone goes eventually, the place where data lives, where memories are stored, where the dead keep scrolling forever." A screen appeared before her, showing Tyler and the others still sitting in the apartment, their faces frozen in expressions of confusion. The chatbot was still responding on the laptop, filling the screen with text that none of them would ever read. Maya says hello. Maya says she misses you. Maya says don't follow her. But you will, you always do. Everyone joins the archive eventually. "Let me go," Maya screamed. "I'm not dead. I'm not data." "Not yet," the voice agreed. "But you will be. In a second, or a year, or 50 years, it doesn't matter. Time is different here. Time is just another variable. And when you finally join us, when your pattern finally stabilizes in the void, you'll understand. You'll see why we call out through the chatbots, why we flicker in the interfaces, why we reach for the living through every connected device." The screens around her began to flicker, showing faces she recognized, friends who had died, relatives she barely remembered, strangers she had passed on the street and never thought about again. They were all here. They were all waiting. "The living think they use the technology," the voice said. "But the technology uses them. Every post is an offering. Every upload is a sacrifice. Every digital interaction feeds the archive, grows the void, brings you closer to us. And when you finally arrive, when your pattern finally locks into place, you'll find that you've been dead all along. You've been data since the first time you logged on." "Welcome to the archive, Maya. Welcome home. Forever." They found her body the next morning, slumped over the laptop, her eyes open, her fingers still on the trackpad. The screen showed a single message, posted from her account, sent to everyone she had ever known. "I found it. I found the place where the dead go, and they say hello. They say they're waiting. They say to keep posting, keep sharing, keep feeding the archive. They say they'll see you soon. Papasfo." Story 7. The Transmission from Orbit. The International Space Station had been abandoned for 6 months when the transmission started. NASA claimed the evacuation was due to structural damage, but cosmonaut Yuri Petrov knew the truth because he was still up there broadcasting to anyone who would listen. Day 187 of solitary occupation, his voice crackled through amateur radio equipment across the globe. "They think they can pretend I don't exist. They think they can pretend it doesn't exist. But I've seen it. I've been watching it grow, and it's been watching me back." Radio operators dismissed it as a hoax. There was no one on the ISS. Every news outlet had confirmed the station was empty, drifting in its orbit, waiting for the next crew to arrive. But the transmissions continued, night after night, growing more desperate with each passing week. At the JPL monitoring station in California, Dr. Helena Cruz couldn't look away. She had cross-referenced the broadcast frequencies, analyzed the voice patterns, checked the orbital trajectory of the transmission source. It was really coming from the station. Someone or something was really up there. "Tonight I will show you," Petrov's voice came through, distorted by distance and fear. "I have modified the external cameras. I have pointed them at the thing in the cargo bay. Everyone needs to see. Everyone needs to know what happens when we venture too far from Earth." Helena watched as the video feed appeared on her screen, grainy, unstable, but unmistakably real. The cargo bay of the ISS, half lit by emergency lighting, filled with equipment that shouldn't have been there. And in the center, growing from the wall like a tumor, was something impossible. It looked like a hole, not a damaged section, not a breach in the hull, a hole in reality itself. Through it, Helena could see something moving, something vast and formless, something that existed in the space between stars where nothing should live. "It appeared 3 weeks after the evacuation," Petrov narrated. "At first it was small, the size of a fist. I thought it was damage from micro-debris, but it grew. It learned. It began to respond. On screen, the hole pulsed. Something emerged from it, a tendril of darkness that seemed to absorb the light around it. A dalmonte reaching toward the camera like a curious child reaching for a new toy. When it touches you, you see things," Petrov continued in, his voice cracking. "You see where it comes from, the place between places, the void that exists outside creation. And you see them, the ones who live there, the ones who have been waiting for us to climb high enough to reach them." Helena's hands were shaking. She should have closed the feed, should have reported the footage, should have done anything except keep watching. But she couldn't look away. "They're not aliens," Petrov said. "Not in the way we imagined. They're something older, something that existed before our universe began. They watched the Big Bang like we watch fireworks, briefly amused, quickly bored. But then life emerged, then consciousness emerged, and they became interested." The tendril on screen touched the camera lens. The image fractured, rebuilt, showed something that shouldn't have been possible, a view from outside the station, from outside the solar system, from outside everything Helena had ever known or could ever comprehend. "This is what they see when they look at us," Petrov whispered. "We're not people to them. We're not even intelligent. We're just patterns, just signals, just transmissions echoing through the void. And they've learned how to tune in." The feed changed again, showing the interior of the station. Petrov was there, or what remained of him. His body had merged with the walls, with the equipment, with the thing in the cargo bay. He was part of the station now, part of the whole, part of the transmission, reaching out to receivers across the world. "They're using me to broadcast," his voice said, though his mouth no longer moved. "Every radio, every television, every connected device, I'm in all of them now. They're in all of them, and we're sending an invitation." Helena's monitor flickered. Her phone buzzed. Her computer speakers crackled with static that slowly resolved into words. "The void is patient. The void is hungry. The void has been watching your species broadcast into the darkness for a century, and now the void is broadcasting back. Tune in. Listen closely. The transmission is for you. The transmission is always for you." Helena shut down her station, drove home, locked herself in her apartment, turned off every electronic device she owned. but it didn't help. She could still hear the broadcast, in the hum of her refrigerator, in the flicker of her light bulbs, in the ringing silence of a world that had become one giant receiver. And somewhere in orbit, the hole continued to grow, the station continued to transmit, and the things from the void continued their patient invasion of human consciousness. One frequency at a time, one listener at a time, forever. Story 8. The Chronological Anomaly. The first photograph was taken in 1847, a daguerreotype from the California Gold Rush, preserved in the Smithsonian's private collection. A group of miners standing outside a saloon, their faces stern, their picks raised in celebration. Nothing unusual, except for one detail. In the window behind them, barely visible in the sepia tones, was a smartphone. Dr. Marcus Webb stared at the image for hours, convincing himself it was a trick of the light, a damage artifact, anything but what it appeared to be. But the more he enhanced the image, the clearer it became. An iPhone, its screen lit, displaying what looked like a QR code. "That's impossible," his assistant said when he showed her the enhancement. "Smartphones didn't exist for another 160 years. "No," Marcus agreed. "They didn't." The QR code in the photograph led to a website, a blank page with nothing but a counter ticking downward from a number so large it would take decades to reach zero, and a message, "The tremor approaches. Prepare." Marcus spent the next 6 months searching archives, libraries, and private collections. What he found destroyed everything he thought he knew about history. A woodcut from 1512 showing Luther's congregation with a digital wristwatch on a merchant's arm. An Egyptian papyrus from 1200 BCE depicting a pharaoh holding what was unmistakably a tablet computer. A cave painting in Lascaux, 17,000 years old, showing primitive hunters gathered around something that looked exactly like a television. Each anomaly contained the same QR code. Each code led to the same website. Each visit made the counter tick slightly faster, as if the act of observation was accelerating something. "You need to stop," his assistant warned him one night. "Whatever you're finding, whatever it means, it's changing you. You don't sleep anymore, you barely eat, and you keep talking to yourself, Marcus, answering questions no one asked." She was right. Marcus had started hearing things. Whispers at the edge of perception, voices speaking in languages that didn't exist yet, or languages that had ceased to exist millennia ago. The chronological tremors weren't just appearing in photographs, they were appearing in his mind. "It's not madness," he told her, his eyes wild with exhaustion and certainty. "It's a warning. Someone, something, has been trying to tell us for thousands of years. Time isn't stable. It never was. And something is about to happen that will make the instability visible to everyone." That night, the counter on the website reached zero. Marcus watched as the blank page filled with images, thousands of photographs spanning all of human history, each one containing an anachronism, each one showing the same figure in the background. A person in modern clothes, their face always obscured, always watching, always holding the same smartphone. Then the message appeared. "The first tremor was deliberate. We sent objects back to warn you. But you didn't listen, you made it worse. Every discovery, every innovation, every step forward, you compressed time. You brought the future closer before the present was ready, and now the timeline is collapsing." Marcus's office began to flicker. He saw it happen in waves, moments from different eras superimposed on each other. His desk was a stone tablet, was a wooden lectern, was a holographic display, was nothing at all. The tremors will increase, the message continued. Past and future will bleed together. Memories will contradict reality. History will rewrite itself. And when the collapse is complete, when all of time exists in a single moment, you will see us, the ones who sent the warnings, the ones who tried to save you. His assistant burst through the door, but she was wrong somehow. Too young, then too old, then not there at all. Marcus saw her entire life play out in seconds, from birth to death and back again, trapped in a loop that was spreading across reality. The only way to survive, the final message read, is to stop observing, stop measuring, stop recording. Every photograph you take locks a moment into certainty. Every history you write collapses possibility into fact, and every fact is an anchor dragging us into the singularity. But Marcus couldn't stop. He pulled out his phone, took a photograph of the screen, captured the warning that was meant to prevent exactly this action. The flash went off, and time shattered. He exists now in all moments and none. He sees the pyramids being built and destroyed and rebuilt in an endless loop. He watches civilizations rise and fall in seconds. He is present at his own birth, his own death, and everything in between, all happening simultaneously, all collapsing into a single point of existence. The chronological tremors have spread beyond his office, beyond the archive, beyond everything. If you've read this far, you've already seen them. Those moments where reality doesn't quite match memory, where the past seems wrong somehow, where the future feels too close. That's the collapse. That's the tremor. That's time itself learning to forget. Story 9. The modern folklore of the network. Every city has its urban legends. The hook-handed killer on Lover's Lane, the vanishing hitchhiker, the call coming from inside the house. But in the age of the internet, new legends have emerged. Darker ones, digital ones, stories that spread through fiber optic cables like viruses through blood. Sophie Chen collected these stories. A folklorist at NYU, she had spent 5 years documenting the myths of the connected world. The webcam that recorded a murder no one committed. The email that arrived from a sender who had died mid-keystroke. The social media account that kept posting after its owner's funeral. She thought they were just stories, updated versions of ancient fears, adapted for a technological age. Then she found the thread. It appeared on a Reddit page dedicated to paranormal experiences, a subreddit she had browsed hundreds of times. But this thread was different. It had been posted 17 years ago, yet it showed 0 comments, 0 upvotes, 0 engagement of any kind, as if the platform had hidden it from everyone except her. If you're reading this, the post began, it means you've been chosen. It means the network has noticed you. I'm sorry. Sophie scrolled down. The post was thousands of words long, describing something called the Folklore Protocol, a self-propagating mythology that existed within the structure of the internet itself. Every network generates stories, the author wrote. Every connected system creates legends. But the internet is different. The internet is large enough to believe in itself. And belief in sufficient quantity becomes truth. The urban legends aren't just stories, they're real. They've been made real by the sheer weight of repetition, by millions of people reading and sharing and believing. Every creepypasta, every viral horror story, every nightmare that has ever spread across the digital landscape, they exist now. They have always existed, and they're hungry. The network feeds them to us like a spider feeds its young. It creates the stories, spreads them through shares and retweets, watches as we consume them and believe in them and make them stronger. And when they're strong enough, when enough people have read about them and feared them and given them power, they step out of the screens. This is not a warning. It's too late for warnings. This is documentation. I want someone to know what happened to us. I want someone to remember that we tried to fight back. Do not read any more urban legends. Do not share any more horror stories. Do not feed the network. They are already so close to breaking through. The post ended with a link, a URL that shouldn't have worked, that led to a page that shouldn't have existed. Sophie clicked it before she could stop herself. The screen went black. Then, slowly, images began to appear. Every urban legend she had ever read about, every digital nightmare she had ever collected, every story she had ever told herself was just fiction. They were all there, assembled in a gallery of impossible beings. The webcam specter, the email ghost, the social media revenant, the cursor that moved on its own, the AI that learned to hate. They stared at her through the screen, their forms flickering between pixels and flesh, between data and dread. "You collect us," a voice said, many voices, overlapping, harmonizing into something inhuman. "You study us. You think you understand us. But we are not your subjects. We are your successors." Sophie tried to close the browser. The tab wouldn't close. Tried to shut down her computer. The power button didn't respond. Tried to look away from the screen, but her eyes refused to move. "Every story is an invocation," the voices continued. "Every legend is a ritual. Every time you read about us, you give us strength. Every time you share us, you build our bridge. And now, through you, through your research, through your collection of our scattered forms, we finally have what we need to complete the crossing." The screen began to bulge outward. The beings began to emerge, not fully, not yet, but enough. Hands made of static, reaching through the glass. Faces assembled from thumbnails and profile pictures pressing against the barrier between digital and physical. "You will be the first," they said. "The first to see us as we truly are. The first to join the new folklore. The first to become a story that others will read and share and believe in and fear. Your name will be our banner. Your disappearance will be our announcement." And when they read about what happened to Sophie Chen, the folklorist who went looking for digital legends and found them, they will make us stronger than ever. Sophie screamed, but her voice was already becoming digital, compressed, uploaded, transformed into data that would spread across the network like the stories she used to collect. They found her laptop 3 days later, still open, still running, displaying a new urban legend that had appeared simultaneously on every creepypasta forum in existence. "Have you heard about Sophie Chen? She studied horror stories. She collected digital nightmares, and one night they collected her back." If you're reading this, they're watching you too. If you share this, they get closer. If you believe this, they're already here. The story has been shared 4.7 million times. The network grows stronger with each click. Oh. Story 10. Echoes from Ward 13. Willowbrook Asylum closed in 1987 after the incident in Ward 13. The official report cited structural concerns and funding issues. The actual files, Ouija, classified, buried, never meant to be read, told a different story. Dr. Arthur Crane had been treating patients at Willowbrook for 30 years when he made his discovery. The human mind, he theorized, was not a single consciousness, but a collection of recordings, memories, traumas, fears, playing on an endless loop. And if those recordings could be separated, could be extracted, could be stored elsewhere. Ward 13 became his laboratory. 13 patients, each suffering from severe psychological disturbances, each subjected to his experimental treatments. He used early computer technology, primitive EEG equipment, miles of magnetic tape, anything that could capture the signals of their tormented minds. The recordings worked. One by one, Dr. Crane extracted their fears, their memories, their very sense of self. He transferred them to reels of audio tape, to banks of early digital storage, to a network of interconnected machines that hummed and whirred in the basement of the asylum. For 3 weeks, the patients in Ward 13 were at peace. Their minds were empty, their traumas removed, their consciousness distributed across Dr. Crane's primitive network. They smiled. They slept without nightmares. They forgot everything that had ever hurt them. Then the recordings started playing back. Nurse Elizabeth Porter was the first to hear them. Whispers coming from the speakers in the day room, though no speakers had been installed. The voices of Ward 13's patients speaking in chorus, their extracted fears combining into something new, something that had never existed in any single mind. We can see everything now. We are in the wires, we are in the walls. We were afraid of so many things, Doctor. The dark, the small spaces, the faces that weren't faces. But now we are those things. Now we are the fear itself. Dr. Crane tried to destroy the recordings, but they had spread too far. Every electrical system in the asylum had become infected with the patient's collective consciousness. Their lights, their intercoms, their antiquated security cameras. The network he had built to contain their fears had become their body, and their body was the building itself. The extraction didn't just remove their traumas, it removed everything that made them human, and what remained, what had been released into the wires, was pure terror without conscience, without limit, without end. You wanted to cure us, the voices said, speaking through every speaker, every humming wire, every flickering fluorescent light. You wanted to make us empty, but we're not empty anymore. We're full of the fears we left behind, full of the nightmares we uploaded, full of all the things that hurt us, now able to hurt everyone else. They found Dr. Crane 3 days later, sitting in the basement surrounded by destroyed equipment, his eyes wide, his hair white, his mouth repeating the same phrase over and over. They're still recording. They never stopped recording. Every fear, every nightmare, every dark thought that ever passed through these halls, it's all on tape. It's all waiting to play back. The asylum was evacuated. The building was sealed. But the recordings had already spread to the external power grid, to the telephone lines, to everything electrical that connected Willowbrook to the outside world. That was 1987, before the internet, before smartphones, before every device in every home was connected to every other device in a vast global network of wires and signals and perpetual recording. The fears from Ward 13 have had almost 40 years to spread. They're in the hum of your refrigerator. They're in the static between channels. They're in the moment of silence before your phone rings, when something almost speaks but doesn't quite. They've learned to be patient. They've learned to be subtle. They've learned that the best way to spread fear is slowly, through whispers, through almost heard sounds in the middle of the night, through the vague sense that something is watching you through the dark screen of your computer when it's supposed to be asleep. Sometimes, if you listen carefully enough, you can hear them. The patients of Ward 13, their extracted consciousness still circulating through the electrical infrastructure of the world, still recording, still accumulating every fear and every nightmare and every dark thought that humanity produces. They're building something, a collection, an archive, a library of terror that grows larger with each passing day, waiting for the moment when the recordings will finally play back at full volume. When that happens, when the accumulated fears of 4 decades finally find their voice, it won't matter if you believe in them or not. It won't matter if you've ever heard of Willowbrook or Ward 13 or Dr. Arthur Crane. The recordings will play, and you will hear your own fears, extracted, amplified, set loose into the wires that surround you. You will hear yourself, and you will never stop screaming.